Famous in motorsport than the Indianapolis Brickyard.
Right in the heart of the Midwest, 4.1 kilometres this track, which functions in and around the Great Speedway. 13 turns, 73 laps tonight. 75% race distance will be 55 laps. Just mark that in your mind in case we have dodgy weather. Last year, that controversial result with Rubens and Michael and Ferrari playing games. Look at that sky. Few showers, 5 to 12 degrees, winds from the west-northwest at 10 to 20 kilometres an hour. This circuit's on the low end or the medium end of downforce. It's abrasive on tyres in the bowl because, Billy, they run backwards through what is in fact turn one for the Speedway. But when you get to the infield, it's very smooth and very easy on tyres. And in fact, one of the quotes that I mentioned earlier, well, it was yesterday, I was going to say today, on RPM, was that the Director of Engineering for Renault, Pat Simmons, reckons that when you race at Indy, it's like racing at two circuits in one weekend, because the compromise required between aero and straight line speed is enormous, and different people have gone about this job this weekend in very different ways. For example, Montoya recorded speed trap times that were as much as 17 k's up in a straight line by comparison to some of his nearest rivals, but that essentially means he's probably carrying a little less wing. We know the BMW's got a lot of grunt, but that may in fact then require some sacrifice in the infield. Lots of different ways of going about the same problem, and you're going to see lots of things unfold in relation to that tonight. Dare I say it, at this time of the day, Juan is banking on picking up a pass or two in that particular part of the circuit. Too early.
It is too early for that. Let's have a look at some of the shots from our practice and warm-up before the Saturday qualifying. The weather, as Neil mentioned, has played quite a strong hand in this weekend already. The times were dramatically spread on Friday, weren't they, Neil, because of the varying conditions? Well, the Friday morning test session was in actual fact dry, but then Saturday practice was a combination of wet and dry, mostly wet, and then we had a wet-dry qualifying. But not only that, the track conditions are changing because of it. The rubber's either being washed off, or other support category cars have been on the circuit and changed the configuration of the grip on the circuit. For example, on Saturday qualifying, it was massively windy, and people were reporting that their cars were stable and functioning well in the warm-up lead-up to qualifying, and then it all turned to you-know-what come qualifying. For example, Mark Webber, who had a tremendous run on Friday, he was P3, really struggled in Saturday qualifying. He was actually the fastest in Sector 2 on Saturday morning's practice, and then just couldn't repeat because the conditions changed. These cars are very fine edge tuned when it comes to setup. It doesn't take much to shift them. Well, the order for the Saturday qualifying was quite mixed because of that Friday session, and the times compressed a lot as well. Let's take a look at the action.
Jacques Villeneuve improved from 16th to 12th, hacking his time down to the 1:13s in far superior conditions. The first driver to see big gains, though, was Olivier Panis, who gave Toyota one of their high points of the season.
This should go comfortably fastest then for Olivier Panis.
Frentzen and Fisichella struggled in his wake, but teammate Cristiano Di Matta lifted a couple of spots. After Jenson Button, the first of the championship contenders came out, Kimi Raikkonen. He said after Friday he wasn't concerned about letting 8 drivers follow him on Saturday. That's cool.
And Kimi Raikkonen goes fastest.
Panis loses P1, but how far would he fall? Michael Schumacher was coming out. He had missed the morning practice after his car stopped on the first lap. He was noticeably angry about that. It didn't seem to matter as he matched Raikkonen through Sector 1 in spite of mistakes, but it fell away quickly.
Unfortunately for him, it's not gone according to plan.
Fernando Alonso could not lift much on his Friday position, and David Coulthard lost ground. It may have been his warm-up spin, but there were plenty of those. Juan Montoya was next. He had lots of crowd support, and they revved him up as he charged around, apparently running less wing than Raikkonen. Maybe that's why he clipped a curb.
He goes across the line and he's third.
Could Ralf Schumacher get amongst them after his enforced break from racing? He too was spinning in the warm-up, but he gathered his composure when it counted. Enough to push Michael further away from Kimi and Juan. Mark Webber's Saturday blues continued, but the car was completely different to the one that was so fast on Friday. Only Barrichello and Trulli to go. Rubens did pretty much what Ferrari had hoped, throw himself among his teammates' rivals. Trulli had been waiting for repairs after yet another warm-up crash, and they couldn't complete the setup in time, which unsettled him. It was a very ordinary lap by the standards he set on Friday.
Let's see, out of 13 then comes Jarno Trulli. It's not going to be the long dreamt of pole position for him.
The grid had changed dramatically and only 4 seconds separated the field this time. Raikkonen reckons he's found a good balance between downforce and speed. Barrichello may be the key to the race if Michael can't free himself from further down the order. Toyota loves Panis, a new high for the team, and his best starting position since Argentina in 1997. Montoya a couple of hundredths away, but row 2 is good, especially with his teammate behind him to keep Michael away. Toyota was also impressed with D'Amata, who might be running heavier than Panis. Big news is they and BAR are ahead of Jaguar. The Saubers had been making good progress through the morning session and warm-up, but they lost ground again when it mattered. Of the last 4, the usual setback from being first on the road. It doesn't get easier.
Well, it doesn't get easy for the title contenders either. Let's have a look at the scenario now that we mentioned at the top of the show. Michael, of course, is the man who can possibly win the title this weekend, Neil, but as I said, a few things have to happen for that to take place.
And those things are that Raikkonen needs to be 3rd or worse, and Montoya needs to be 6th or worse. So Michael could pick up his 6th world title this morning. I keep wanting to say tonight if he can do that, but it might be a pretty tall order from 7th. There's going to be a lot of traffic and a lot of difficulty in trying to get through all kinds of games that I think are going to be played in this race. And I think also that if it rains, depending on how wet it gets, we're going to see great variance in tyre performance.
Well, I mentioned it in the qualifying story that there are, as you say, games that could be played with Ralph behind Juan, of course, protecting him from Michael, but of course Coulthard's up there, Kimi's teammate. And then you have the 2 wildcards, Panis and Trulli, who...
couldn't care less about the World Championship.
Absolutely, and could do anything. And Rubens, of course, will be there to try and help Michael in some way, I'm sure, even though the definition of team orders now is rather spurious. But getting back to Trulli and Panis, Trulli in particular did not perform extremely well because he had that upset in the warm-up crash, and they didn't get the car quite ready for him, and he may go better than that particular...
Yeah, this is it again. He fired it off. This was in the Saturday warm-up just preceding qualifying, and that car and driver combination had been extraordinarily quick throughout the weekend. He was fastest in the Friday morning practice, fastest in Friday practice, and then fastest Friday qualifying, and then continued his strength through the early part of Saturday, only to end up in the barriers at the critical time. And then when they tried to turn that car around for qualifying, it just wasn't right, and he's ended up 10th. But again, he's got great performance in that car, and he had a real edge in the early part of the weekend, so there's a possibility that he could get in the game. Indeed, his teammate could as well, and Alonso's in there as well.
Well, we added a new segment to our Formula One telecast. It's called Show and Tell. Neil's brought in his ashtray here, in fact, that he keeps in his dining room.
You idiot.
Of course, we don't smoke. But anyway, Neil, this is fascinating, particularly so now with the weather changing. The tyre battle is going to be very good.
Yeah, well, we thought it was appropriate to bring this in. This is a rear tyre from a Jordan, in fact a Bridgestone, pretty obviously. And there was all that discussion in recent weeks about the Michelin and whether or not the tyre was in fact legal. The area that was being discussed, and we made mention of this on RPM today, is this shoulder of the tyre where the tread face meets the wall. It was alleged that Michelin had arranged a construction in such a way that they were able to use this part of the shoulder of the tyre, extending effectively the tread width by between 10 and 15 mil. And one of the things that's extraordinary about this tyre is just how soft it is in the sidewall. Same with the front tyres on these cars. They're really just amazing and incredibly light. Mentioned this on RPM as well. This is 13.8 kilos. Think about that in terms of 4 of these, and it's just over 50 kilos. Total weight of a Formula One car, including the driver, is 500 kilos. So wheels and tyres equate to 10%. It just tells you how light some of the other components are. We know engines are 90-odd kilos. Drivers, when they're dressed, are 75, 80-odd kilos. So you start subtracting out these things and you realise that the dainty bit that they sit in is astonishingly strong and light.
Well, we've done some number crunching. We'll do some comment crunching after the break because Mark Webber will have something to say about this race. We'll come back with more from the United States Grand Prix. Welcome back as we continue our coverage of the USA Grand Prix. And when they're not talking about the weather at Indianapolis, of course, they're talking about what the drivers might do in 2004. That's the fun part as we get to this close end to the championship. Neil Crompton, the silly season is, well, just as silly as ever.
It sure is, and I think a lot of it's just silly. You know, what happens, I think, is the journos sit around and after they've discussed what may or may not happen in the World Championship, they begin to daydream and they conveniently put people where they think they might fit, but I don't know whether it's in fact reality. There's a lot of discussion going on about whether Montoya's going to McLaren, but we hear that all of the key players, in fact, do have contracts, and as I said earlier in the day, everything in this life tends to be for sale. It just depends on the money involved. That's how you break contracts, otherwise end up in court. So the big question, I think, is what's going to happen in 2005. We know that there's going to be a lot of contracts up for a renewal at that point. I think then there'll be quite a shuffle. There may be something weird jump out of left field, but I think at the moment a fair bit of it is if, but, maybe.
Well, the latest strong argument was that Flavio Briatore would not allow this shuffling of drivers that would get Webber over to Williams because he might want him at Renault.
Yes, that's right, and you know, he manages him, so why would you let one of your key guys get out of your grasp, particularly if he's got something in mind for him at the expiration of, for example, Trulli's contract, which is another year from now. So, look, it's very difficult, unless you're one of the drivers. I've been behind the scenes in this stuff, unless you're actually one of the two parties involved, the team manager or whoever it is, the team owner and the driver, nobody knows the truth of these things other than those that are very, very close.
We'll wait and see which uniforms they're wearing next season. That's the best thing to do about the whole situation. Now, Jeremy Shaw obviously had all that rumour talk in mind when he caught up with Mark Webber after qualifying at the Brickyard.
Mark, you've been doing so well in qualifying this year, and you seem to be on great yesterday, third fastest in the first session, but struggled in that final qualifying session.
Yeah, the track was at its hottest as for the whole weekend, really. Obviously, we do a lot of running in the morning here, and the qualifying session itself was the hottest it had been all weekend, so we just struggled with the balance, to be honest. I had a few moments early in the lap, and it just wouldn't handle the amount of load I was trying to put through it, so it was a bit frustrating. But you know, we've done okay in qualifying, like you say, for most of the year, and working on the race performances has been a key issue. The one lap's normally looked after itself, but today we struggled with balance massively, and we suffered.
Now, coming into this race weekend, I think most people thought Bridgestone were maybe going to have a really competitive tie here. That doesn't seem to be the case, and particularly today, it's been relatively cool here compared to what it has been like here in the past, but still it seems to be a Michelin track so far, at least. Yeah,
they're doing a good job, I think. The regulation change, if you like, Michelin being punished for good technology, let's say, it doesn't really make a huge amount of end, I don't think, because Monza was always going to be quite a strong circuit for Bridgestone, I think, and if you go back to Budapest or Magny-Cours, we go back to the tracks where Michelin were very, very strong, I think you'd see the same results. I mean, a couple of mil here and there is not going to be the difference between like Michael getting lapped in Budapest.
It has been a very closely matched grid, all the way through the weekend, and we're still not quite sure what the weather is going to do for the race. If it's wet, are you going to struggle big time?
It'll be a tough afternoon in the rain, yeah. The grip level is probably a little bit lower than the other teams on the Bridgestones, let's say, but there is a window also where the Michelins work a lot better than the Bridgestone. So it's if it's full wet, I think the battle is maybe a little bit closer. If it's greasy, then I think they have an advantage in Bridgestone. And then when you start to get a track which is about 6 seconds off, 5 seconds off, just going to grooves, the Michelins are stronger than the Bridgestone. So if you have all four of those conditions tomorrow, then it could be interesting. But could be sunny. I mean, we've had everything here this weekend. It's been amazing.
Now, once again, Mark, you're the centre of attention this weekend in terms of the news. A lot of rumours going around that maybe Montoya is going to trigger a big switch on here, and there's word that maybe you might be moving next year, despite the fact you've got a contract. What do you got to say to that?
Well, I'm driving for Jaguar next year, and that's all I can say, really.
Great, Mark. Thanks very much.
He's driving for Jaguar next year. Now, there's a lot of scrambling going on in pit lane, Neil, as we get ready for this race, because the weather has, in fact, turned a little nasty at Indianapolis.
Yes, and these are now shots from the grid at Indianapolis. Olivier Panis qualifying third. You mentioned in the package earlier, Bill, this was his best qualifying performance since 1997, the year that he broke his legs in the Canadian Grand Prix, and Toyota's best. This is Montoya. Focus of much attention so far this weekend. Speculation about what he may or may not be doing. very quick in a straight line, this car, yesterday. And I didn't make mention during the track facts that coming out of turn 13 and down towards turn 1, these things will be doing 340 odd kilometres per hour. And you can see that it's gusty conditions in the background and the back of the parking lots behind the speedway, and it's parkas and jackets on. There's been a sprinkle of rain, and everybody currently umming and ahhing about what they will or won't do in terms of tyres. And I thought it was particularly apt that we had the interview there with Mark explaining the virtues of the performance of both brands of tyres in different conditions. And if you recall the Brazilian Grand Prix earlier in the year, Billy, you'll recall that there were lots of different phases in the race where both tyres had extreme strengths and weaknesses. It just depended on how wet was, if you understand what I'm saying, because there are many variants in a wet track.
Michael not starting from pole here, of course. First time at this circuit that he hasn't started from pole. He's never been off the podium here, though. His record is very, very solid. Notice there we didn't mention Alonso, who's starting in front of Michael, and after the disappointment of the previous round where he had to start from the back and had all that trouble, he'll be pretty keen as well.
Yes, well, he probably want to make amends for that last one. It was a shocker in Italy after the extraordinary performance in Hungary. You know, he went off in qualifying on the Saturday in Italy, and then that start line disaster. He did get back in the points, though. He kind of snuck up through that afternoon and got the job done quietly, but I reckon he would have had his head fairly low. So there's the situation looking back along the main straight, what is normally the exit of turn 4 at the Speedway, but the approach to turn 1 for this 13-turn circuit. There's the downtown area at Indy. Incidentally, this race will be most likely a two-stopper should it be dry, and it's about a 28-second total time loss, including stationary time for a pit stop here. That's the new pagoda that they built several years ago when Formula One came to town and replaced what was a pretty dreadful old structure there from yesteryear. And in fact, they revamped all the garages at Indy, and there's the top man. And this event has been very successful so far in bringing interest back to America. Of course, Formula One there, once upon a time was an East and West Coast Grand Prix at Long Beach and Watkins Glen. There's the layout of the circuit, shows you also the sectors. Sector 1 obviously commences at the start line, and at the exit of turn 4 is where Sector 1 ends. Then 1 to 2 is from 4 through until the exit of turn 11, and then 12 and 13. That wonderful corner, 12 and 13 in particular, where they get through the banking, is awesome.
We'll take a break now. When we come back, we'll be on the warm-up lap, I think, or pretty close to it for the US Grand Prix. Welcome back to the 47th Formula One Grand Prix run in the United States. The first one was at Sebring back in 1959. Bruce McLaren won that in the Cooper Climax. Of course, that little statistic does not include the Indy 500, which was a round of the World Championship in the early days of Formula One. Part of the Brickyard is in use here as we get set for the warm-up, but not all of it. It's a very tricky configuration.
This is the first of the flyaway races since way back in June when they went up to Canada. And one of the interesting things about the way this weekend has unfolded, Billy, is first of all it's massively cooler than it was for the same time last year, where the air temperature was 26 and the track temperatures are in the mid-30s. The conditions today have gone back to much like it was on Friday afternoon, overcast, cool. We're hearing that the track temperature at the moment is 18 degrees as we reflect on the points situation. And one of the things, several of the teams have actually had some reliability bugs. Michael had a problem with an engine at one point. Justin Wilson in the Jaguar had a problem. Cristiano De Mata had an engine problem. Ralph Schumacher, we haven't made much of a mention of Ralph really. He went off and into the barriers as well in Saturday practice. So many of the key runners have actually lacked a little bit of track time, not only because of some reliability issues, but also because of the variation in weather conditions. So some teams are going into this race as a bit of a leap into the unknown.
Now, we brought your attention to this great battle for 5th in the championship. Look at that, BAR Honda, Jaguar and Toyota. Only a few points between them. Mark Webber, a key player in that battle, but Jaguar have qualified as a team behind both their rival teams.
This is going to end up being a race determined, I should think, by tyres and tyre performance in varying conditions. And it's interesting that, again, if you look through the course of the year, the Jaguar genuinely seems to prefer cooler conditions with the more dense air. and that was the sort of conditions again that we had on Friday when Webber was position 3 in Friday qualifying. The work that's been going into tyres just in the last couple of weeks is extraordinary, and in the recent tests where Ferrari and Sauber were testing for Bridgestone, they took away 1,400 tyres, got through 12 constructions and 4 compounds before they ultimately chose 8 to bring here this weekend. By contrast, Michelin have only brought 2 different tyre types, but both organisations putting massive effort in.
Very nearly some wing damage there.
Really?
So one of the cars ran very close.
One of the longest straights in Formula One, 22 seconds at 100% throttle, 1,822 metres standing on the gas here, and we're just about set to go across to ITV.
Just tightens up his visor, his gloves. Montoya into position, front 4.
Raikkonen's about half a metre. Look, his right front could be level with that yellow line to your left. His right front is about half a metre behind where he could be if he wanted to. Well, he'll creep into that zone, but he's not allowed to be moving when those lights change.
Well, up to now, it's been all build-up and anticipation and speculation. Now we're going to find out who's going to win the American Grand Prix and what that's going to do to the World Championship. When the 5 lights go off, we'll be racing at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Hold on to your seats, everybody. Here we go. They're away! Tracking start by Raikkonen. Look at Panis down the middle. He's ahead of Rubens Barrichello. Montoya's got away well as well. He's just in front of Michael Schumacher. And Montoya, has he got his Montoya? Ralph Schumacher, can't tell from this angle.
I think that's Ralph. Montoya had a terrible start. I was looking out of the window, just a slow reaction time and very slow away for Juan Pablo Montoya, and that let Michael Schumacher through too. We'll have to wait. Some lock front brakes there into turn 4, no particular problem. And yes, Michael Schumacher is up to 4th. Ralph is 3rd, Panis is 2nd, Barrichello down in 5th. So for some reason, Barrichello and Montoya just really slow reaction time and slow away.
So Michael Schumacher and Juan Montoya have swapped positions. Schumacher was 7th on the grid. Now it's Montoya who's 7th. Montoya was 4th, and it's now Michael Schumacher in that position. Raikkonen leads Panis. Great getaway then for the Toyota. Ralph Schumacher 3rd, Michael 4th, Rubens Barrichello down to 5th from 2nd on the grid. 6th, David Coulthard. Good start for him from 8th place on the grid. Montoya, as we said, has gone backwards. Alonso is 8th. D'Amato 9th. Jarno Trulli is still in 10th place as they come through. Very short lap here in Indianapolis. Just over 1 minute 10 seconds for the quick guys as they come through to complete lap 1.
And Coulthard shaping up for a look at the back of Barrichello as they head down. Ralph Schumacher looking at Panis too. There is Barrichello taking a tighter line and he loses it to David Coulthard. So Barrichello slipping down to 6th, Coulthard up to 5th. Montoya in 7th could not capitalise on all of that action.
Yes, but Coulthard certainly could. He's managed to get himself up ahead of Barrichello. It was a very nice move indeed. And into the pits already comes Ralph Furman.
Looks like he's tagged somebody, a new nose and front wing then for Furman. Let's see where it happened. It was very early on, down in turn 9 by the looks of it, and he lost the wing very badly there. Lots of shards of carbon fibre. Will that create punctures for other runners? And that is Ralph Furman rejoining the race then. Raikkonen with a 1.6 second lead from Panis.
Now you remember the Hungarian Grand Prix, Fernando Alonso in pole position, and it was a bit of a tangle in the first corner. Mark Webber in the Jaguar was 2nd in the opening lap, and he just held the field up. This is precisely what a lot of people thought might happen again here this afternoon. If Panis got in front of the field on the opening segment, he would hold everybody up. But Ralph Schumacher having a go around the outside now. He doesn't want to lose any time, and there he goes.
That is the speed of the Williams. We haven't seen Montoya able to use it at this time. He's right up behind Barrichello. Did Montoya pass Barrichello? And look at that! That is a Ralph Schumacher, wasn't it?
No, it's Montoya Barrichello. That was Juan Montoya trying to pass Barrichello, just as you said, Martin, that he needed to do just that. He's pushed Rubens Barrichello off the racetrack, and that's rain coming down. We can see rain clearly, and Barrichello is beached.
Yes, he's going to try and hopefully he's going to try and pull the same trick as Michael Schumacher did at the Nürburgring and getting a push away, raining quite heavily then. So now it is Raikkonen from Ralf Schumacher, Panis, Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard up to 5th, Barrichello out of the race. And where did Montoya drop behind the 2 Renaults? Yes, he did. Montoya then really lost that badly in all of that.
Yeah, down to 8th, 9th place at the moment. And the question is, has he got any damage to his car? Here it is again.
And Montoya up the inside then, but just wasn't really a car's width in there. There go the 2 Renaults. What a miserable afternoon for Montoya. This was down, this is a replay of down into turn 1. They were a 10th of a second apart as they crossed the line. Montoya tries to get inside of turn 2, and that is where they touched. You'd have to say Barrichello had the line and had the right of way, if you like, through there. Look at the rain coming down. You can see it against the back, and that is dangerous stuff now with that digger out in the line of fire there.
Well, they're good friends, Juan Montoya and Rubens Barrichello, both South Americans in Formula One, as Rubens walks disconsolately away. I'm sure there'll be words later on, but Montoya clearly feeling he had to go aggressive, he had to attack early on, and ironically it was down into that very corner last year where he tagged his teammate Ralf Schumacher, which caused so much problem to his race. This is a bit of a bogey circuit for Juan Montoya. He's been competitive here on each of his previous visits, but he's not really got a decent result, and once again today he's got a lot of work to do.
Michael Schumacher getting along nicely in these conditions though. And where is the rain? It's still raining quite hard. Panis becoming under pressure. That is for 3rd place. Raikkonen did lead by 2.7 seconds from Ralf Schumacher. We'll find out any time now where it's at. Surely Michael Schumacher in the perfect position to take P3. Yellow flags are waving. You're not allowed to overtake under yellow flag. Was he passed? There's another car. That is a Renault trying to overtake. He got away with it. He didn't make the move, but he would have been penalised. Could you say Michael Schumacher had already passed before the yellow flag zone? Suspect he had, just.
Well, we'll hopefully get another look at that. That's very, very marginal, but on such things are World Championships sometimes decided. That would be a stop-and-go penalty if he did pass under the wave yellow. And side by side there, the Renault and the McLaren. David Coulthard and Fernando Alonso, and Alonso moves up into 5th place.
The Renault is working very nicely too in these conditions. Montoya recovering then. Montoya has passed Jarno Trulli, who's already gained one of those places back, and he's shaping up for Coulthard. We know he's 10 kilometres an hour faster, 6 miles an hour faster down the pit straight if he can get anywhere near the back of that McLaren.
It's absolutely pouring down with rain now. Here you can see it on the camera lens of Juan Montoya's car. The first pit stops for wet tyres can only be a few laps away. Up onto the banking then, 155 miles an hour at this point on a slippery track goes Juan Montoya. He's really throwing caution to the wind here.
Okay, who's lining up for a run down the pit straight this time? It is Panis under pressure from Alonso. Montoya with his low downforce setup couldn't get anywhere near Coulthard in the switchback hairpin, so Montoya cannot use his top speed at this time. Raikkonen leads by 1.4 from Ralf Schumacher, who's 2.6 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. Panis 4th, Alonso 5th, Coulthard, then Montoya 7, Trulli 8, D'Amato 9, Jenson Button then is rounding out the top 10. Where are the other Brits? Wilson is 14th, Furman now up to 18th after Verstappen has pitted, and Barrichello the only man to drop out of this race after tangling with Montoya in turn 2. Montoya then up alongside Coulthard. No, he's not. Couldn't make it stick.
Jarno Trulli just behind them, the rain falling ever harder, the track getting darker and darker as it gets more damp, and the mechanics sit and watch this on the television screens. You saw the Ferrari guys a minute ago. No sign yet of the first round of pit stops, but it can only be a short time away. Look how slippery it is for Montoya.
Pure confidence here. You've got to believe the car's going to stick. The water's streaming off, and that is Panis, isn't it? Pitting. Panis in the Toyota pitting. Coulthard has passed Alonso. Alonso struggling around the outside of the 9-degree banking. And look at that. Coulthard taking another one. It's Michael Schumacher. Suddenly he's straight up in one straight. And look at Montoya too.
Whoa, Montoya had a go, but he couldn't quite make it. David Coulthard, a fantastic move on Michael Schumacher, who was obviously slow coming out of the final corner. And now the two main championship contenders are right next to each other on the racetrack. Raikkonen still leads it, but this is exactly what we wanted to see. Montoya right up the back of Michael Schumacher.
And this is exactly what I was telling you about. When the track goes from dry to wet, the Michelins can hack it and the Bridgestones fall off the slope of grip. And Michael Schumacher seriously under pressure from a posse of Michelin-shod runners, and Coulthard is away then up into third place. And we saw Panis struggling out of the pits. He has now made it out of pit lane. So has Villeneuve. They will have gone on to the intermediates. This is a long way from over. If it keeps raining and the Michelin runners have to go onto a full wet tyre, they will get buried by 2 seconds a lap.
Well, we're getting information up from the F1 ITV pit crew that the rain is easing off a little bit now. It's going to be one of those afternoons, I fancy. Look at Montoya, though. He's got terrific drive, and he just shoots up the inside of Michael Schumacher. And the crowd are up on their feet. The Colombian element are anyway, because Montoya has passed Michael Schumacher, and so has the Renault of Fernando Alonso.
Schumacher cannot hold it flat through the banking. He hasn't got the confidence or the grip. Car number 3 is under investigation by the stewards. That is Montoya. Has he passed under a yellow flag somewhere?
No, it's the incident with Barrichello. It must be. But maybe the stewards want to see whether or not that was an avoidable accident that put Rubens Barrichello, let's not forget, out of this Grand Prix. If that was Montoya's fault and it was avoidable, there could be a sanction, and that would certainly have a huge effect on the World Championship.
Look at the traction that the Renault has over the Ferrari. That's Alonso over Michael Schumacher, and that is where he's struggling. And that is why he just can't get up onto the banking either. Raikkonen leads by 3.2 now from Ralf Schumacher. Coulthard is exactly 3.2 behind him. Montoya homing in on them very quickly.
Yeah, well, not all of the Bridgestone runners seem to be struggling in these conditions. Nick Heidfeld, the Sauber, is up in 8th place at the moment, with Mark Webber in the Jaguar just behind him. Jenson Button's going well in 10th place as well, just 13 seconds off the race leader, Kimi Raikkonen. Ted.
James, it has now stopped raining, blue skies coming over, but I tell you, Juan Montoya is under investigation for 2 things. First of all, the incident with Barrichello, and also he thinks he might have still been under a yellow flag when he continued and passed another back marker, the yellow flag for his own incident and recovering Barrichello. So maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, there was a lot of overtaking. We highlighted it at the time. Going down into turn 1 where they were double-waved yellows. That is one short of a red flag. Here's the start. And look at Montoya, just so slow on the getaway there. Almost as if it caught him by surprise. Everybody cleanly up and running, though. But Raikkonen with the perfect start from pole position. Down into turn 1, and they're jockeying for position, but nobody actually connected. Amazing. It's quite wide in there, but at the end of the day, there's sort of 1.5 racing lines, and this is from the camera of Michael Schumacher following his brother then beautifully to what was then P4, and he would have been delighted with that. But now he's P6, 10 seconds behind Kimi Raikkonen.
As he took the outside line, did Michael Schumacher. A nice safe route round the outside, avoiding any trouble. You could see Juan Montoya was being very, very careful on the run down to the first corner. Didn't want to get his front wing taken off. There he is then, following David Coulthard, who's having another terrifically strong run here this weekend. He was 3rd last year here at Indianapolis. Terrific drive by him, and he looks very good again.
Something that didn't sound too healthy as it just went past the commentary box window. The Ferrari, the latest Ferrari, tends to sound a bit sick. It's almost as if it's missing a cylinder. It's got a curious exhaust note. It may have been that. We'll keep a listen out. Raikkonen, Ralf Schumacher, David Coulthard 3rd, Montoya. Alonso has just gone fastest man so far. And now Michael Schumacher beginning to get back up to speed as the dry line reappears.
I tell you what though, Martin, it may be a bit damp out there, but the pace is absolutely mesmerising. Kimi Raikkonen's lapping in the mid 1:11, and that's a good couple of seconds faster than the pace here last year in the opening section of the race. So he leads on lap 10 from Ralf Schumacher. David Coulthard 3rd. 4th is Montoya. 5th, Alonso, who's just set the fastest lap of the race so far. 6th, Michael Schumacher. 7th, Jarno Trulli. And 8th, last of the points positions, Nick Heidfeld.
While ITV takes a break there, we'll continue with the race. An extraordinary sequence of events, Neil. The big worry here is, what are they going to do with Juan Montoya? A lot of responsibility. There's a championship in the balance here.
Well, yes, I'd like to look at it very carefully as Villeneuve comes in again. He actually was one of the runners that shot in for wets before, along with Panis. They'd be feeling pretty sick about that decision right at the moment. It just goes to show how quickly the conditions can vary. And as we predicted at the top of the show, this race is going to be all about tyres. But you'd need to study that Montoya-Barrichello incident very carefully, but my gut reaction to it is that Montoya could well be in trouble as a result of what happened at turn 2 in those opening laps.
How good was that shot of Montoya passing Michael? We did talk at the top of the show about the balance between running too much wing and sacrificing speed, but Montoya obviously very, very confident when they enter that banked section of the circuit. He's made some beautiful passes there and seemingly very easy ones.
Well, just tyre grip in the conditions that were suiting his tyres. He was able to stay hard on the throttle through turn 13, and the Bridgestone runners were tippy-toeing. And incidentally, Mark Webber is now up to 9th position, and he's one of the beneficiaries of a couple of people that have pitted and those that have been struggling on the bridges in those slightly marginal conditions. The speed, which James alluded to a moment ago, is particularly impressive when you consider that pole position was a 1 minute 11.6, and we've already seen fastest laps from Alonso and Montoya, who both recorded 11.5s. Panis has also come back in now and ditched the wets and gone back out on slicks, so from having qualified P3, that's a disaster for him to have to cycle through the pits. They'll have taken the opportunity to put some fuel in that car, and they may need to now change strategy to try and dig their way out of it. They'll be hoping that there's going to be some variation again in the conditions to try and get out from what's turned out to be a poor decision.
Well, after all that shuffling, the interference of the rain, the race is settling down a little bit now. Positions look like they'll hold, and the shuffling will start again when we see the pit stop strategies unfold. That's a little way off yet as we return to our commentators.
Lap 12 of the American Grand Prix at Indianapolis. It's been an all-action start to this Grand Prix, and no mistake. And now Ralf Schumacher in second place is eating into the lead of Kimi Raikkonen. There you can see the positions on lap 13. Jarno Trulli has made his way up to 7th place. Michael Schumacher still the meat in a Renault sandwich there. And Olivier Panis, who we saw on the grid 3rd place, has thrown that away. He's made 2 pit stops, having decided the rain was sufficiently bad he needed wet tyres. Villeneuve made the same mistake. They've now had to come in and switch back onto dry tyres. Villeneuve is now 16th and Panis 15th. Cristiano De Matta in the second of the Toyotas did the same thing, and he's 14th.
So who will be the first to blink in terms of having to come in for fuel? Raikkonen leads by 1.8, and quite clearly Ralf Schumacher and indeed David Coulthard in 3rd place are beginning to haul him in. Montoya with the ever-present, there he is now, the ever-present Alonso just behind him. And Michael Schumacher now recovering. He's now back in the low 1 minute 12. So the track then is bone dry effectively. The racing line is absolutely dry, and we're back to square one, except it's all been mixed up nicely. Championship-wise, it's almost perfect, isn't it? Raikkonen 1st, Montoya 4th, Michael Schumacher 6th. Long way to go yet.
Yeah, 10 points for a win. 8th for 2nd, 6th for 3rd. New point system this year, going down to 8th place. And certainly added to the spice of the championship. There's Patrick Head, technical director of the Williams team, just explaining something to one of the mechanics down there. But judging by the body language, it just looks like a fairly routine conversation. As once again, Ralf Schumacher eats into this lead. Look at that now. It's just a few car lengths. It was 1.2 seconds at the beginning of this lap. That's Montoya there going through the shot. He is behind David Coulthard, 3rd and 4th place battle there. That's getting close as well.
Michael Schumacher's just done a 1:11.4. That's 1.3 seconds under the fastest lap they put in last year. So Schumacher is, well, both Schumachers absolutely flying now. And I wonder if those slightly softer Michelins on the McLarens are now beginning to hurt them slightly as the track really starts to stabilise and give up some grip.
Let's talk about it from a psychological point of view. Obviously, Kimi Raikkonen has had his own serene progress at the front, not too much to worry about except just keeping his foot down. But Montoya's really been through the mill, hasn't he? He's had an incident with Barrichello, which has put Barrichello out of the race. He's under investigation by the stewards.
Look,
how's he coming down?
Stop,
look at
James,
this.
look for Montoya. Look, Montoya and Coulthard. That is going to be very tight. And Montoya sends it across the curb. And Coulthard, in the end, had had to yield. That is where the straight line speed of that Williams was always going to pay him off. And look, Coulthard's gone deep into 4. Did that allow Alonso through 2? And Williams getting ready for a stop. Yes, it did. Alonso picked off Coulthard at the same moment while he was wrong-footed, brake too deep into 4, having been put out of position in turn 2. Montoya up to P3 then.
Yeah, from 3rd to 5th goes David Coulthard. Montoya's obviously settled into this race. He's certainly got his temperature up, but he is under investigation by the stewards. We will give you any information we get as soon as we get it, what the stewards think about what Montoya was involved in earlier on. But he is now very much where he wants to be, right behind his teammate Ralf Schumacher. We're probably about 5, 6, 7 laps away from the first round of pit stops for fuel and tyres. And with Montoya just a few seconds behind Ralf Schumacher, it'll be interesting to see whether there's any team orders. There we go. Ralf Schumacher comes in fairly early, you'd have to say.
Yes, Schumacher pits then. They're on lap 16. He's pitted at the end of 15. That is quite early, much earlier than I thought the Williams would be pitting. It's bad news for Montoya if he's just got a lap's worth more on board. It was an OK stop. Louise is with Rubens Barrichello.
Rubens, I know you're close friends with Juan Pablo, but presumably you'll be having a few choice words with him after this race.
I mean, it's... we've always said that we've been running quite close, and one day we might have touched it. But it's it shouldn't be today, because it was a close battle. Turn 2 close. The turn actually turns quite rapidly into the left. I didn't turn in onto him. I thought I had given him his space. I didn't even reach the apex of the corner. All of a sudden, I felt a bang. So I need to look at the video, but it's very unfortunate that happened this way.
He's under investigation. Do you think he should be penalised?
To be honest with you, what I care is that I'm out of the race. That is very unfortunate. What I wish now is that I could put my car back to the race. That's all.
Thanks, Rubens.
Well, I think Montoya, I absolutely agree with Rubens Barrichello. He's seeing it whilst he was driving a car and probably didn't have that good a view in his mirrors. But look, Michael Schumacher pushing David Coulthard. That's for 4th place at the moment. Coulthard's struggling in this phase of the Grand Prix. But I think Rubens will not see anything on the video replay that surprises him over and above how he's just explained it. I have a feeling Montoya will get away with that. It was a little bit sort of touch and go, but clearly Barrichello had the line through the corner, had the right of way. But if he's overtaken under double waved yellows, he will get penalised. Michael Schumacher then nowhere near close enough to Coulthard at this time. And truly, watching, I spoke to the Renault team before the start of the Grand Prix, and they were allowed to check his car after qualifying to see if they managed to get a reasonable setup on it. They weren't allowed to change it, and they were pretty pleased with the setup that it had. So they're expecting truly to be at full speed through the Grand Prix, despite that very hastily repaired car for qualifying yesterday.
Well, you recall earlier on we saw Michael Schumacher as the McLaren dives into the pit lane. Schumacher passing what looked very close to a waved yellow flag. There's nothing from the stewards about investigating that incident at the moment. Coulthard pits.
Montoya pits too. So that'll put a smile on the face of the Ferrari team. The Williams and McLaren team were clearly running less fuel in qualifying yesterday. So there is Montoya then. And obviously, oh no, they're Ted.
Yes, there is a problem. The first fuel rig failed yet again. Why does this happen so often for Williams? David Coulthard stops going fine. He's away. Montoya delayed. What a disaster. Off he goes.
How much more can go wrong for Juan Montoya today? It's been his fortune has been swinging around like a pendulum. Absolutely extraordinary, and we're still not even close to half distance in this Grand Prix. So much more can happen here, but Montoya filters back into the field.
Well, clearly that could be a pivotal moment in the World Championship deciding action. And Montoya would have lost probably about 12 seconds there, I would estimate. We only came to it late in vision, but they didn't start the clock until after his complete tyre change and everything was finished. And there is more water coming down then. This will play back into his hands, providing it doesn't get wet enough for a full wet tyre. Alonso pits from second. There you see it. Raikkonen leads by 7.3 from Alonso. Now it's from Michael Schumacher. He's 10.2 ahead of Michael Schumacher. So Raikkonen effortlessly at the front at the moment as everybody else is having dramas. And I would imagine Coulthard will be well pleased to have changed those tyres. He was really struggling.
Well, the rain seems to be coming down harder as Alonso goes back out onto the racetrack with dry weather tyres on. We could certainly see some more changes in conditions here at Indianapolis this weekend. Raikkonen leading Michael Schumacher then by 10 seconds. Third is Trulli. Fourth at the moment, Mark Webber. These are all people who have not made a pit stop. Jenson Button fifth. Alonso rejoins, having made his stop. Justin Wilson seventh at the moment. Ralf Schumacher, we've seen him in the pits. He's eighth. Frentzen has yet to stop. He's ninth. Coulthard is 10th, just ahead of Juan Montoya, who after that sticking fuel nozzle is down in 11th place.
Surely Raikkonen will pit this time. Traditionally, the McLarens tend to have an optimum strategy and they pit their cars one lap apart. Ralf Schumacher getting rid of one of the rip-offs on his visor. He'll probably have 3 or 4 of those on for the Grand Prix distance. There's Frentzen. He is in 9th at the moment, has yet to pit as he's under pressure from Alonso. Ted.
Raikkonen pits right in front of me. It is raining again now, guys, but they are putting slicks back on. We've seen how well these Michelin tyres can cope with a bit of rain. The fuel goes in. Ferrari still to pit. That's a decent stop, 10.9.
And because he had a decent lead over Michael Schumacher of about 10 seconds, seems to me they took the opportunity for another second and a half, 20 litres of fuel. And Raikkonen exits then straight virtually into the side of, crucially, Ralf Schumacher.
Yes, because Ralf Schumacher was in second place, if you remember, before this whole pit stop sequence started. Him coming into the pits allowed Montoya to go up into second place. So effectively, net, Ralf Schumacher is leading this Grand Prix because Michael Schumacher has yet to make a pit stop. So has Jarno Trulli, Mark Webber and Jenson Button, who are currently still top 4 guys at the moment. Rain coming down harder than ever, and a difficult decision now for Ferrari. What do? Do they go for dry tyres or wet tyres? At the moment, the lap times have only gone off by a couple of seconds based on compared to the pace of a couple of laps ago.
Look at a little Alonso in there as well behind us. I agree with you, James. This is sort of net for the lead of the Grand Prix when they've all stopped. And Alonso right in the thick of the action as Michael Schumacher pits then. What on earth are they going to put on it? It can only be dry tyres, surely. And I mean, it's such a gamble to risk those inters. Let's see if we can see what they're putting on. Get out of the way, please. Please get out of the way. We want to know. Yes, dry tyres going on the Ferrari then. That'll be a handful when he gets out.
Certainly will. The pace is dropping off a little bit more now as the more and more water comes down. Even in the first sector, a couple of seconds down. Now look at this. Side by side, Raikkonen and Alonso. This is a tremendous scrap for the first 3 positions net of the Grand Prix once everybody's made their pit stops. This is the centre of attention here at the Grand Prix.
And that little Renault was flying when the conditions were like this earlier on in the race, when we had that first little drizzle of rain. It's a bit heavier now. Now the track has changed colour down here. This is getting very near the zone of needing something more. And there's a car running wide, but the 3 contenders then still virtually nose to tail.
Everybody's sliding. Mark Webber, for the record, is leading the Grand Prix at the moment. Jenson Button is in second place, and the Jaguar of Justin Wilson is third. So that's the position at the moment as Jenson Button goes off the course. There's a scramble down there in the tight, twisty section. You see how much the traffic plays a part here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I don't think the Toyota's in the action because they lost a lot of time early on. But surely Wilson is. Wilson just passed Button. Ferrari are ready. Clearly they're going to put intermediates on Michael Schumacher. It can only be Schumacher. Barrichello, of course, already out of the race. The inters are going on. The Bridgestones will not work in these conditions. The track has now visibly become wet. And also, just to add to Montoya's problems, you tell them, James.
I don't believe this. Drive-through penalty for car number 3 for causing a collision. Well, that's what we said would be the sanction if, in fact, the stewards decided that the accident between Montoya and Rubens Barrichello was avoidable. They have, and he'll have to do a drive-through penalty. Here comes the Ferrari then. Michael Schumacher, the sole remaining Ferrari in the Grand Prix. He was only in a couple of laps ago. It was the wrong choice to go out on dry tyres. Now he's coming in for the correct tyres.
Yeah, but it wasn't raining anything like this at the time. I think this will work beautifully. If it keeps raining, this is going to work perfectly. Some of the front runners are going to fall off the track. It's too wet for those Michelin dries, but they know they haven't got a decent tyre to put on in its place. There goes the intermediate, a very shallow tyre, and they have an incredible range, those tyres. They can run to within about 3 seconds of a dry time, and Michael Schumacher will have a big grin on his face underneath that crash helmet, knowing he needs those tyres because he knows that the Michelin runners don't have an answer for those.
No, and of course he'll also be... Oh, Ralf Schumacher is off the track.
Left rear damage too. As I said, they're going to go off the road with it. Those tyres will not cope with these conditions, and his left rear, I think, is damaged. His left rear, not yours, and I think he's got a problem. Yeah, and the rear wing's broken too. Ralf Schumacher effectively out of contention.
Yeah, just look at that left rear wheel, completely useless, as you can see. He'll be taking no further part, and that's a real shame for him, because when things all shook out, as it was looking, he would have been leading the Grand Prix. Just reversing then up the escape road. Mark Webber is still being shown as the race leader. Here he is.
Raikkonen and Alonso pit. Michael Schumacher is going to be waltzing away now as they have to come in and put wet tyres in. Kimi Raikkonen pits now. There goes Mark Webber with a spin. Coulthard is currently shown as the leader of the Grand Prix as the pit stops begin. That's the second stop for Raikkonen. There's a rooster tail of spray behind the cars as they pass the commentary box window and head down into turn 1 Ted.
Juan Montoya is in the pit lane serving his drive-through penalty now, but bad news for him, and is this his championship going down the drain with the rain? He's going to have to come in the next lap for wet tyres.
Yes, just to remind you, when you serve a penalty, a drive-through, it's at the speed limit of 50 miles an hour, and they cannot work on the car in any way, shape or form. So everybody stopped them, with the exception at the moment of Mark Webber,
who we just saw having a bit of a spin. Jenson Button's enjoying this phase of the race. The Bridgestone wet tyre is definitely considerably better than the Michelin. That's the big picture here at Indianapolis. There's the Jaguar off the racetrack. Mark Webber's car, we're being told, off the race. That's a shame for him. But the big picture here, Martin, is that if it stays raining like this, Michael Schumacher is in the box seats, because throughout this weekend, once again, when we've had wet running, we've seen that the Bridgestones were a couple of seconds a lap faster than the Michelins. Here's Montoya then, going slowly.
Yeah, he looks like Granny creeping down to the supermarket. He can't go any faster than that. He'll do exactly the same as Ralf Schumacher, his teammates done, and Mark Webber. He'll just snatch the wheels and skid straight into the barrier. Here he goes. Look, now he's got a tippy toe down the grass. He'll get away with that. It's costing him 20-30 seconds. He's on the wrong tyres. The overtake under the yellow flag probably cost him the Formula One World Championship, but these conditions are not helping him at all. But I remind you, there are 50 laps to go yet.
There's McLaren dicing with Justin Wilson. That's Raikkonen and Wilson. Battle for third place. Amazing to see Justin Wilson up there holding his own with everybody else. He's made one pit stop, and he was lucky because basically he came in at exactly the right moment to put on the wet tyres. He'd gone very long on his fuel strategy, and it played into his hands, but he's having a real trouble keeping the car on the road, as is Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, and Raikkonen will be very nervous of that, though. If he has a little touch and loses a wing or a suspension, Jenson Button leads then from Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Justin Wilson is third, Kimi Raikkonen fourth, David Coulthard is fifth, but lapping 10-12 seconds slow on dry tyres. Surely he'll have to pit now, and Alonso sixth, Michael Schumacher seventh, Ted is down in the pit lane.
Montoya in, but he's gone for the full wets. He's also added fuel. Here he goes. Williams must be sure then that the rain is going to continue or get worse, because in those conditions, these Michelin full wets aren't that bad.
No, but they may be gambling. They've got nothing to lose, really. They have to. They've obviously put quite a lot of fuel into that car as well. 73 laps to Grand Prix. I doubt he's got enough to get to the finish, but I think after what he's been through, they've just got to roll the dice, haven't they, really?
Yes, they have, but you can't just bung a load of fuel in and say, well, let's run a bit longer. The penalty's too high. A third of a second for every 10 kilos of fuel they've dumped in that. And, you know, there is a cut-off point. We don't know exactly how much they put in, but he's taking a bit of time to get up to speed, as Button it was, wasn't it? The current leader goes around the outside and effectively puts a lap on him.
Yeah, Montoya has just been lapped in a race that he came into hoping to move his championship aspirations forward. And just look at Button driving away from him. How hard is that to take if you're Juan Montoya? This is lap 25. It's been an amazing Grand Prix so far. There's still a long way to go.
and is now disappearing into the distance. He's doing a 1:16. This is the value of these tyres. And look, he's about to catch who's in the 1:18s, Kimi Raikkonen, his World Championship contending rival. Michael Schumacher is suddenly staring at the face of a World Championship this afternoon, James.
He is indeed. He needed Montoya to be 6th or worse, Kimi Raikkonen to be 3rd or worse, and at the moment, well, he would. There's a long way to go yet, but Raikkonen certainly seems quite strong. He'll be hoping to keep it going to Suzuka. As here comes Michael Schumacher.
And this is the Bridgestone Inter versus the Michelin Wet. No contest. Michael Schumacher scything his way through the field. He is a dozen seconds behind Jenson Button. So that's the kind of, and he's lapping in the 16s, everybody else in the 18s and 19s. Coulthard elected to stay out on dry tyres. Not quite sure how he's staying on the racetrack, but he's not staying in contention. He's now 68 seconds behind the leader. He should have pitted some time ago.
The race is really coming towards Michael Schumacher now then. As the rain comes down here at Indianapolis, he is on the right tyres. Jenson Button leads from Frentzen. Michael Schumacher 10 seconds behind with 45 laps to go. He's ahead of Raikkonen and Juan Montoya, who's had an incident with Rubens Barrichello that put Rubens out of the race. He's also, because of that, had a drive-through penalty and as well as a couple of pit stops. He is down in 11th place now, just behind David Coulthard, and it's proving a very, very expensive afternoon for the championship hopes of Juan Montoya.
Montoya then going a lap down on Michael Schumacher. That's caused a few groans underneath us here in the grandstand, James. That just demonstrates to you the tyre difficulties. Ted says that Montoya went onto a full wet, which I found amazing. It's difficult to tell on those because it's the same tread pattern, just a different depth, but Montoya's nowhere on pace, 1:20.6. Michael in the 16s and 17s. Michael will be leading this Grand Prix in the next 5 laps. Raikkonen down to 4th then. Coulthard still struggling around on dry tyres. Don't ask me why. There are 3 people retired at the moment. Webber took a bite out of the wall when he was on dry tyres on a wet track. Same happened to Ralf Schumacher, and Barrichello unceremoniously dumped out in turn 2 by Montoya. Montoya was penalised. We don't know if it was because of that or a breach of the yellow flag rules, but nonetheless he had to do a drive-through. So he's been through the pits 3 times today, Montoya. He's slow and he's on the wrong tyres.
I think they did tell us it was for causing an avoidable incident, but he's been involved in so much this afternoon. He'll have an awful lot to reflect on. And he's got plenty to reflect on now. He's staring at the rear wing of his main rival, Michael Schumacher, and he knows that he is a whole lap down on him. It's going to be very, very difficult for him to rescue this position. But you can see there does appear to be something of a drying line coming up, and 1 or 2 of the Michelin runners looking for the, as Raikkonen puts a lap on Montoya as well, 1 or 2 of the Michelin runners looking for the wet stuff to keep the tyres nice and cool.
Remember, Montoya went for a low downforce setup. Oh, and there is the Toyota then of Panis, isn't it? In the wall. Panis was 13th. He's dropped it, and he will retire from the Grand Prix surely from that. Be a broken rear wing at best. And where is that? Is that down at the braking zone into turn 8? Let's have a look. I think it... yes, it is. No, it's in the hairpin, isn't it, of 9. That's a curious place to fall off so fast. Louise is with Ralf Schumacher. It's a curious accident too.
Ralf, very tricky conditions out there. Obviously, that's what caught you out.
Yeah, just wrong decision to stay a lap longer because the rain was so heavy. I tried to ask to the pits, but there was a totally misunderstanding between the 2 of us, basically. So that's why I stayed out, and you know, it's fun.
We understand that your teammate is on the full wet tyres at the moment. If you were out there now, what would you be on?
Yeah, I'd be on the full wet as well. I mean, it's wet enough. I mean, it's very difficult condition for all of us out there, but wet is definitely the right one at the moment.
Looks like the weather's playing into the hands of the Bridgestone runners, though.
It looks like it. I mean, Michael's going forward, as I understood. Good for them, bad luck for us.
Thanks, Ralf.
Jenson Button leads still by 5.3 seconds then. Michael Schumacher just 8.8 behind him. Raikkonen beginning to get up to speed again now, but he's on the wet tyre. He'll have to come in at some point. He'll be hoping soon there is a dry line appearing. He can start making hay again. Alonso 6th, Heidfeld. Alonso 5th, Heidfeld 6th. Wilson still up there in 7th, Trulli 8th, Fisichella 9th. Fisichella in the Jordan, trundling around nicely. Montoya 10th, but going very slowly.
And Michael Schumacher is now just 7 seconds behind race leader Jenson Button. He's closing him down at around about a second and a half a lap at the moment. Button leads Frentzen by 5.4 seconds, and one of the two McLarens is off. It's Coulthard back onto the racetrack. Coulthard down in 12th place at the moment, with Montoya in 10th place. So as I say, Button leads Frentzen, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Raikkonen 4th, Alonso 5th, 6th is Nick Heidfeld, and then we're expecting Justin Wilson in the Jaguar to come through in 7th place. He's 8 seconds behind the Sauber of Nick Heidfeld, and Justin Wilson is having a tremendous afternoon for Jaguar.
Go and put some wets on it, DC, for goodness sake. It's 15, 16 seconds a lap slow. It costs 31 seconds to pit. It's never a good decision to be on the wrong tyres for more than a lap, and indeed, finally, it gives up to the inevitable. If it had dried out, it gives up to the inevitable. If it had dried out quickly, it'd have looked a megastar with that decision. 0-0, it's always the way with these decisions from the cockpit, presumably talking to the pit wall. Who knows? Ted is down there.
No, Martin, they're putting on slicks again. Unbelievable. They came out with wet tyres, got a late call from the pit wall, because it is starting to dry up now, and have put slicks back on. Incredible. Is this going to work? What a gamble by McLaren.
Meanwhile, look at Michael Schumacher trying to get past Heinz-Harald Frentzen. This is a battle for position on the racetrack. It might seem a bit unusual to see a Ferrari battling with a Sauber for a podium position, but that is the situation here at Indianapolis this afternoon. Both of these cars using the Bridgestone tyres, and Schumacher very anxious to get past Frentzen. Well, we heard Ted saying that the rain is dying out. Certainly at the moment, looking out of the commentary box window, I can't see too much rain. There's a stiff breeze here at Indianapolis. It's drying the track up as Schumacher thinks again.
Schumacher in the slipstream. This is for position. There'll be no blue flags waving as they were in Monza. And, well, that was very easy, wasn't it? Frentzen then, and Michael getting himself well out of shape. Will Frentzen punish him for that? Unlikely, given the way he let him through in the first place. But Michael then up into 2nd place.
That was extraordinary how easy it was for Michael Schumacher to get past that Sauber into that corner. Very unusual. Anyway, Jenson Button leads still here at Indianapolis on lap 33. Frentzen down to 3rd place. Michael Schumacher is now just 5 seconds behind the race leader. Raikkonen 4th, Alonso 5th, Heidfeld in 6th. Going away from here this afternoon, Kimi Raikkonen is down in 4th place, and the one Montoya is 9th. But as I say, a lot can still happen here.
If it's going to dry out, Raikkonen will come straight back into it. Michael Schumacher looking very handy though, just 1.5 down. There's the gap between 1st and 2nd. Button has driven nicely at the head of the field, and he lost 1.9 seconds on that particular. No, 1.9 seconds on that particular tour, but Raikkonen's kept himself in the reckoning, James. Despite being on the wets, he's still only 12.6 seconds behind the leader.
And the one advantage he does have is a teammate who's out there on dry weather tyres, on a drying track. It's not been raining now for a few minutes, and as soon as David Coulthard radios in that the dries are the tyres to be on, and I would imagine Raikkonen will react, won't he?
He will, as Wilson getting it out of shape under braking for turn 8 again, and there come the leaders then to lap him. And car 5, David Coulthard, under investigation for something, being on the wrong tyres possibly. It's quite bizarre what's going on there. Looking forward to hearing what that's all about. He's still something like 10 seconds per lap adrift, despite them having pitted and putting on dry tyres again. Bizarre. This is for the lead then. Schumacher on the banking in the slipstream, surely got a few clicks more than Jenson Button. How aggressive is Button going to be to defend this lead of the Grand Prix? And Michael will have to come down the wetter inside. Jenson can keep it round the outside, but Michael carries more speed through the apex. Well, he didn't give up too easily.
No, he didn't seem to come across to cover his inside line though too much, did he?
I think he probably thought Michael wouldn't go onto that piece of the track that was so wet. I think Jensen wanted to keep himself a chance of a decent line through turn 1. He took up all of the dry-ish part of the track. Michael thought, well, I'll have a go at that then, which was pretty brave considering the championship's up for grabs.
Ferrari mechanics moving down in front of us. They're getting some dry weather tyres ready and prepared for whatever the right moment is that Michael Schumacher decides he wants to switch over onto dry tyres. He leads the Grand Prix here at Indianapolis, and it really has all come towards him with the weather conditions changing as they have throughout this extraordinary 52 minutes we've had so far of this Grand Prix, and we're only just at half distance.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else out in the pit lane drying their pit garage box for their driver. Imagine there'd be 100 Ferrari people out there breathing on the first 100 metres to give him a good getaway. Doesn't need it at the moment. He now leads the Grand Prix. Let's see what this lap is for Michael. He lost a bit of time passing Button. He goes over the line with a 1:19.4. Coulthard has driven straight through the pits. It's a time penalty for speeding in the pit lane for David Coulthard. So that's put him even further out of contention. He's running effectively 15th out of 16 now. This man leads the Grand Prix by a second from Jenson Button. Raikkonen is 13.7 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. What are we going to see here? It's Michael... well, what we're seeing then is the Renault just falling off the racetrack, basically.
There's Jenson Button just in the heat haze from the back of the Ferrari, running very strongly in second place. And let's not forget that BAR are locked in a pretty tight championship battle with Jaguar and Toyota. It certainly doesn't look as though Toyota are going to do much here this afternoon. But Jaguar looking quite good a while ago with Justin Wilson, but he's now dropped out of the points-paying positions. He's down into 10th place, is Justin Wilson, unfortunately. His teammate Mark Webber is out of the Grand Prix, having gone off the track in the heavy rain. Jenson Button, if he can maintain anything like a podium position, and let's face it, he's never been on the podium before, Jenson Button, that would be a huge payday for the BAR team.
It would indeed, and if you look down the field, who's likely to spoil that for him? I think Raikkonen could. Michael Schumacher ahead of him. Raikkonen is, let's see, Raikkonen is a dozen seconds behind him, but if you look behind that, there's really not anybody to spoil that for Jenson Button, unless it fully dries and the Renaults can come back up to speed. We're now getting in the zone where the Michelin dries will start biting.
Well, you know, if you were the British BAR team and you were Jenson Button, you'd look at it, and the only guy, if it does as you say, dry out, who might give him problems, apart from Raikkonen, is going to be Jarno Trulli, but he's a full 50 seconds behind. So if BAR box clever here, Jenson Button could be set for his first podium.
Yes, indeed. Well, the weather's just taken it all away, really, hasn't it, in the middle of it? This was the dream scenario for Ferrari. Basically, Montoya's now lapping some 9 seconds away from the ultimate pace. There'll be some head scratching over at Michelin, and Louise is with Olivier Panis.
Yes, Olivier, who has seen both the highs and the lows of Formula 1 this weekend, haven't you?
Well, I mean, really, it's really hard for us because we did a fantastic job all weekend. I did a fantastic start to be at second. My strategy on the dry, I want to stop on the lap 19. I think we are in very good shape. And I think it started to be rain and we decide to stop. I don't know if it's good or not, but we decided anyway. And when I go out, the anti-stall came in and that I don't have to go out very quick. And after that, we lose the plot. And
so once again, it's all gone wrong on race day?
Sorry?
Once again, it's all gone wrong on race day?
Yes, but one time something going better.
Thanks, Olivier.
Well, we lose the plot, as he said, and they surely did, as Montoya's about to go a lap down on Kimi Raikkonen. Montoya's just exited the pits while we were listening to Olivier Panis, and he has dry tyres on, and they should be just about the ticket anytime soon.
Well, these two are championship rivals. Kimi Raikkonen wants to get on with this, and Montoya is already 2 laps down, so he needs to be careful because there'll be waved blue flags here. He's not allowed to hold up Kimi Raikkonen in this situation.
No, Montoya is down. He should be letting him through, but there should be blue flags waving there. Don't see any sign of wave blue flags. He must, and he does now let Kimi Raikkonen through. Montoya, as you said, 2 laps behind certainly Michael Schumacher. Why is that? Well, it is because he's had a stop and go, he's been on the wrong tyres, and now he's been lapping very, very slowly.
He's let through also the Renault. McLaren team are out now. Brilliant sunshine in the pit lane here at Indianapolis for Kimi Raikkonen, who is currently in 4th place, coming in presumably for dry tyres, and that's Jenson Button. Oh no, the podium is not going to happen here. The American dream is gone away for Jenson Button. He has stopped just beyond the pit lane exit on the main straight. Can't see why, but that's really frustrating for him.
Ted.
Kimi Raikkonen's wet tyres, absolute slicks now. He really needed to come in, had no choice. I think it's the right move. He'll be fueled to the end of the race now, out again on dry tyres.
Yes, if that 6.7 is true, it's not a lot of fuel. Quite a long way to go still. But Raikkonen then will have to tippy-toe for this first few corners. There's Button steaming BAR. Sadly for him, sadly for us. But good news for Kimi Raikkonen. That surely gives him a shot at 3rd place and would keep the World Championship alive, wouldn't it? Look at that dry line coming on the track now. Michael Schumacher will surely be in quite soon too, but as I said earlier on, the range, the window that his tyres work in, he can go almost down to a full dry track.
Well, if Kimi Raikkonen is able to get ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Nick Heidfeld, who are behind in front of him, as you can see on the screen, that's very, very confusing picture here at Indianapolis. But if in the remaining laps here Raikkonen can get ahead and finish 2nd, the championship will go down to the wire in Suzuka. But that's the only circumstance in which it will, because Montoya is 2 laps down. Hard to imagine how he can score any points or significant points here this afternoon unless a lot of people in front of him break down.
Yes, Raikkonen's got to finish 2nd. He's got to pass maybe some Sauber Ferraris to get there. Might be a handful, might be a touch more difficult to get past for him than it was for Michael Schumacher, but nonetheless Raikkonen now on the right tyres and the track is in the sweet spot for him.
In comes Jarno Trulli from 6th place in the Renault. Poor qualifying performance on Saturday after a mesmerisingly good one on Friday by Jarno Trulli. He was fastest of all in first qualifying, but threw it all away yesterday with an accident in the warm-up which damaged his race car and really put him out of kilter. This has been a slick stop though by the Renault team, 6.2, and he is back on his way. Just what you were saying about Sauber Ferrari. They're powered obviously by the Ferrari engine, and we saw Frentzen, who seemed to get out of the way for Michael Schumacher in a battle for position fairly easily. But I asked Peter Sauber about this recently. I said, people think that you play with Ferrari and you let their guys through, and he said, I don't understand why anybody says that. It's not an order that we have. I've never told any of my drivers to do that. And in fact, sometimes he said, I have Jean Todt and Michael Schumacher banging on my door saying, why don't they get out of the way more easily?
Okay, I believe that. Peter Sauber says that, and that is a McLaren. Is that in the background a McLaren or a BAR? It's a Button replay, so it's the replay of Jenson Button, who was in 2nd place, blowing up. On board then with Jarno Trulli. He's currently in 6th place, but a lap down.
But ahead of teammate Alonso. They've both made 3 pit stops here this afternoon, so have a lot of people. Juan Montoya has made 4 if you count his drive-through penalty for the incident with Rubens Barrichello. 30 laps to go, and the familiar sight here at Indianapolis of a Ferrari at the front.
Big black scar on Michael's left-hand side pod. He's obviously had a contact with somebody else's tyre rubber on the side of his car. But he leads. It was 10.5 seconds. He's now down in the 1:15s. So that is definitely the zone. This is 4 seconds away from race pace. So that is the time then to come in and put some slicks on. But there's no point in risking it. His Bridgestones don't work that well on a greasy track, the dry tyres. So they run these as long as they can get away with. But any time now, he'll be in the zone to change them, the need to change them. But he'll want to just stretch the fuel window as well. There are 2 criteria here, in that he wants to fuel it to the end, but he doesn't want to be running on tyres that are really getting too ragged. Jenson Button walking back to the pits. Sad for him.
Yeah, very sad, very frustrating. He said yesterday afternoon after qualifying his only hope for the Grand Prix today was going to be some rain, and well, he got the rain he wanted. But unfortunately, once again, the reliability of the BAR has let him down. Great shot there of the dirty mark Martin was referring to on the side pod of the Ferrari as Michael Schumacher comes through to complete lap 45. And he'll be thinking now about Kimi Raikkonen, who is 57 seconds behind him on the road as Fisichella pits from 5th place. and Fisichella is, more crucially, 42 seconds behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen. That's the margin he's got to make up in order to get there. Fisichella's got a problem.
2 fuel rigs then. They had to use the spare fuel rig on Fisichella's car, and that one looked a bit tough to get out too, so terrible pit stop for him. I think what's significant at the moment is Raikkonen is only just getting into his stride. So he's in P4, 21 seconds behind Heidfeld, and some 45 behind Frentzen. He's got to finish second to Michael to keep the championship alive. And right now, the Saubers have got more than enough pace to make that very difficult for him. Raikkonen does a 15.2. Frentzen does, Heidfeld rather, does a 1 minute 15.3. The Saubers are flying.
They really are. They've done a lot of work on this car in the wind tunnel. It's taken them a lot of time to get this car better sorted out, but some were saying it might be too little too late, but certainly here in race conditions there's nothing wrong with the Sauber, powered by last year's Ferrari engine, the one that took Rubens Barrichello to victory here 12 months ago. That's the lump in the back of the Sauber. Who's blown up? It's a Renault. It looks like Alonso has blown up. He was in 7th place and in front of Montoya on the road, so that Montoya now is up into the points paying positions in 7th place.
Said hydraulic, we're hearing hydraulic failure for Button, which rather surprises me, to be honest. Unless it was hydraulic fluid that was burning and smoking away. Look more like an engine problem, but that's the report we're getting from down in the pits. Michael Schumacher's lead now 14.5 seconds, and Raikkonen beginning now to pull about a second a lap out of the Saubers, but Frentzen is still awful long way ahead of him. Of course, the Saubers are out of kilter on their stops, so they will have to pit again. Did they fuel Raikkonen to the end of the Grand Prix? Didn't appear to, did it? If it was a true 6.7 seconds, he'll have to pit again too. Michael Schumacher's intermediates now look like slicks. There's virtually no tread left on them at all. And there's the Renault of Alonso. Let's hope truly keeps going. I'm flying out of here with Flavio Briatore, and he'll be gone if the other one drops out.
Well, Montoya's certainly going to be hoping that he drops out. He needs 2 more people in front of him to drop out in order to take the championship on to Suzuka. He needs to finish 5th. If Schumacher is going to win here today, Montoya needs to get himself up into 5th place to take it on to Suzuka. And Louise is with the unfortunate Jenson Button.
Jenson, do you want a shoulder to cry on or a tyre to kick?
I don't know what I want to do at the moment, but it's probably the worst feeling I've had in racing. You know, when things are going well and then suddenly you have a problem like that, it's a nightmare. 4 years now and I still haven't had a podium, so.
You led a race for the first time though, is that any consolation?
It's not really, no. You got to be there at the end.
Bad luck, Jenson.
I think when he reflects on it, he'll feel it's a consolation, James. And I mean, he led well, made good tyre choices. A little bit fortunate on the timing of his pit stop, but he made the most of it. So I think he'll be relatively pleased. Michael Schumacher then getting ready for a stop. He's still lapping in the 15s, but clearly they're now in the fuel window.
Yeah, the track is really very dry. Still lapping, as you say, in the 15s. That's 3 or 4 seconds off the pace of the early stages of the Grand Prix. As Jarno Trulli and Heinz-Harald Frentzen circulating very close on the track. Trulli is a lap down on Frentzen, so he's trying to unlap himself. And he looks at the moment to be a little bit quicker. Schumacher then all set down at the Ferrari garage for his 3rd stop of the afternoon. If you recall, he came in for a set of dry tyres and then came in just a lap later for some wet ones. He was unlucky with the timing, but it's worked out very well for him, this weather here at Indianapolis today. And this guy is keeping the pressure on all the way. He's driven absolutely brilliantly. The Michelin tyres haven't been the ones to be on, but he has kept the pressure on Michael Schumacher, who now makes a stop.
It always is so easy when the pressure's off, but this young man now has to put in the stint of his life if he wants to keep the championship alive this afternoon. Can't catch Michael Schumacher unless Schumi has some kind of problem, but he's certainly got to catch and pass both the Saubers. Michael Schumacher out onto the racetrack, then Kimi Raikkonen coming around the banking, and that then is the true distance between them.
Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen has won Grand Prix in the past. The last time was in Italy back in 1999, and he is currently in first place. He's the only man in the field who has only made one pit stop this afternoon. I don't know what their strategy was going into the race, but it was perfect for the changeable conditions. But he does have to make another stop, and we would certainly expect Michael Schumacher to sail past and be back in the lead again. Heidfeld going strongly as well for the Sauber team. What an afternoon they're having.
Frustratingly, and as Frentzen pits then, the leader pits at the end of lap 49. There he goes. So Michael Schumacher will look at this three-way battle down into turn 1 as the Toyota of Damata exits, having had a drive-through penalty for speeding. And Ted, we're on board with Michael Schumacher. Ted is down in the pit lane still.
I'm afraid to say that I think David Coulthard has a problem. His engineers just come off the pit wall. They've made a space in the garage. That's always a dead giveaway. What are his lap times like, Martin?
Let's have a look. Difficult to say because it's just showing he's coming in the pit, so it doesn't show a lap time right now. But he presumably was sort of getting in the zone as the track dried out. He was on those dry tyres, as we know. There is Frentzen exiting with the Minardi. Ted is down there.
Yes, and it was DC. Terrible, terrible luck for David Coulthard. Another retirement. Not quite sure the engine was still going. Maybe it was a gear selection problem. Brave choice to stay out on those dry tyres. He gets out of the car, out of another race.
Yeah, poor old DC. He was very, very strong here last year, and well, he was a little bit caught out, wasn't he, with the tyre choice. One senses that he was probably testing the ground for Kimi Raikkonen, just radioing in whether the track was right for the dry tyres. He took a gamble and it didn't work for him. 24 to go here at Indianapolis. Michael Schumacher is leading now after Heinz-Harald Frentzen came into the pits. Frentzen has rejoined, is being shown in third place at the moment, so it's a Sauber 2-3 here at Indy with Kimi Raikkonen. Just 11 seconds now behind Frentzen and 15 behind Heidfeld. So the main interest for the rest of this Grand Prix is going to be twofold. Can Raikkonen haul in the Saubers, take the second place that he needs in order for the championship to go on to Suzuka, or can Juan Montoya get 2 more places, which would take it to Suzuka from his point of view as well? Lap 51, Schumacher leads Heidfeld and Frentzen, with Raikkonen fourth. Has to stop again as well. That's the battle. It's going to be absolutely crucial to the outcome of the World Championship, certainly as far as this Grand Prix is concerned. And we're about to have a battle royal for second place here. Now, you will recall that Michael Schumacher found it very, very easy to get past Heinz-Harald Frentzen earlier on in the Grand Prix. Will Kimi Raikkonen find it equally easy?
Well, Fisichella has certainly not helped Frentzen at all at this moment, and Frentzen should be having the benefit of blue flags, and Fisichella should be out of his face right now, letting him get on with it. Where are the blue flags? The wave blue flags, it says, for car 21. That's Damata somewhere else on the racetrack, and Frentzen will need to drill that Jordan down into turn 1, otherwise Raikkonen will have the pair of them.
Here he comes then, he's in the slipstream as they go down towards turn 1. He goes for the inside line, it's the damp line. Can he make the braking work for him? Can he get second place? Yes, he can. That was pretty straightforward for Kimi Raikkonen, and the horsepower of the Mercedes-Benz engine and the pure commitment of Kimi Raikkonen takes him up into second place. And if it finishes like this, we are going on to Suzuka to decide the World Championship.
Well, the crucial thing is, I'd be amazed if Sauber didn't fuel both their cars to the end of the race, James. Heidfeld is 22 seconds behind Raikkonen, so he's kind of a little bit out of the frame, really. It's between Raikkonen and Frentzen. Surely Frentzen was fueled to the end. Was Raikkonen? That's the big question left open this afternoon. The reliability of Michael Schumacher up front is the only thing I think can stop him winning the Grand Prix now. And here we see it from another angle, and onto the dirty side and the slightly damp side of the track. But it was dry as they hit the braking zone, and he got a double toe down there. 2 cars punching a hole in the air in front of him, and he really did get tremendous straight line speed as Michael Schumacher puts another lap on the Minardi. Ted.
Well, Martin, we down in the pits aren't sure whether Raikkonen has to come in again, but here are the facts that McLaren are telling us, unsurprisingly. They don't want to give anything away to any of the rivals, but here are the facts. Every time he came in to change tyres, he did add a little bit of fuel. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Point 2, he did save fuel. He would have been able to save fuel while running in the wet conditions. And point 3, the fueler forklift, when the fuel stops are finished, he normally takes his helmet off. The helmet is still on.
Yeah, I think they might need what they call a splash and dash towards the end, but who knows. As it was all out of kilter, pit stops going on everywhere, they would put fuel in, but you don't just carry fuel for the fun of it. It costs you too much. The penalty is too high, so they wouldn't want to hold their man up by just throwing fuel at it because they got the time to do so as they were changing the tyres. But we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Raikkonen's just got to nail it. Interestingly, 1.6 seconds quicker than Frentzen that time around. That's what he's got to do. He's just got to be so fast. It doesn't matter whether he's got to pit again or not.
Lap 57 at Indianapolis. Jenson Button's car there on the left of your screen, parked up. He was leading this Grand Prix. He was on for a podium position in 2nd place, but then the car packed up and he had to trudge disconsolately back. That's the margin then. You've just seen Michael Schumacher go through the screen, and there is the 20-second gap to Kimi Raikkonen. Raikkonen not really thinking about trying to win this Grand Prix, thinking more in terms of maintaining the crucial 2nd position. If he does have to make another splash and dash pit stop, that will cost him, and he's got to put some daylight between himself and the 2 Saubers, Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Nick Heidfeld. They're 3rd and 4th at the moment. 5th then is Jarno Trulli in the Renault. 6th is Fisichella, looking good for some more points for Jordan. His only points so far this season have been from that win at the Brazilian Grand Prix way back in April. And Montoya is in 7th place after such a topsy-turvy afternoon for the World Championship contender. Drive-through penalty for causing an incident with Rubens Barrichello, and stuck fuel nozzle in one of his pit stops as well. Pretty much since the start of this Grand Prix, anything that could have gone wrong for Montoya has gone wrong.
Yes, he fell off the track too, came in for tyres too late, tippy-toed around, lost another 20 or 30 seconds, and that could be crucial. He's 31 seconds behind 6th place man Fisichella, catching him at 2 to 3 seconds per lap. He's got a half a chance of snatching 6th if he can really nail it. Montoya now just about equal fastest man on the racetrack. Is it too late to grab another point, which could be so crucial this afternoon?
It certainly could. And I should mention also that Justin Wilson, who we saw earlier on in the top 3 positions, he then dropped out of contention for a while, but he is back up into 8th place for Jaguar, and that's a pretty important drive for him, because he needs to impress the Jaguar bosses in this final few Grand Prix of the season if he is to get a drive for next year. He's on probation, on trial with the team, and so far he's had a pretty frustrating time. Poor reliability and 1 or 2 mistakes have cost him, but Justin Wilson, all those of you out there who invested in him because he has a share scheme where people can sponsor him effectively, well, your investment's not looking too bad at the moment. He's currently in 8th place, just ahead of Jacques Villeneuve.
The coarse-sounding Ferrari then passes our commentary box, in your view, down into the braking zone at turn 1. It's a 1 minute 13.2 for Michael. This is how far Raikkonen is behind. He's got all of turn 13 and the whole pit straight to do, and he goes over the line anytime now. The gap then is now 21.3 seconds. Frentzen is 4.6 behind him. Montoya needs to be P5 or better to keep his chances alive, and at the moment he's a distant 7. He's 19 seconds behind Fisichella, closing in sometimes 3 seconds per lap, so he might just catch Fisichella before the end of the Grand Prix, but even that will not be enough. He's looking then, he needs another retirement from those runners ahead of him. Just 12 people on the racetrack. Furman stopped on the side of the road, possibly left front suspension damage. Coulthard in the pits with a technical problem. Alonso we saw with an engine failure. Button looked like an engine failure to me, but they say hydraulic problem. Panis put it in the wall, Webber put it in the wall, so did Ralf Schumacher, and Barrichello bundled out in turn 2 by Montoya, who was subsequently penalised for that.
Certainly was. It's been an eventful afternoon. It's been an afternoon that's been marked by rain. It's dry enough now, but earlier on, utter chaos here in Indianapolis. Teams unsure whether to go with wet tyres or dry tyres, and it required a steely nerve, and it required a little slice of luck. And certainly as far as Michael Schumacher's concerned, in the heaviest of the rain, it required being on the Bridgestone tyres. They've taken such a panning this year through the summer, haven't they, Bridgestone? Michelin have outclassed them through the Grand Prix like Magny-Cours and Hungary and places like that. But when it mattered, when it really, really mattered in championship situation, the Bridgestone wet tyre was the thing to be on. And that is what has given the platform to Michael Schumacher to take this race by the scruff of the neck. And how must Montoya be ruining the mistakes that he made earlier on, putting Rubens Barrichello off the racetrack. He had a drive-through penalty for that. He's also had slow pit stops, sticking fuel nozzles. It's been a disaster, really, for Juan Montoya. And here we are, on board with the race leader, hoping to become the world champion here this afternoon.
Well, I'm looking out of the window straight into the McLaren garage, where I can see our very own Ted Kravitz, I think, down there, and we're just watching to see if there's any action or reaction. We're not expecting Michael Schumacher in again. Raikkonen then moving within 10 laps of the finish, so that's quite hopeful. And Frentzen now 7 seconds behind him, and Heidfeld a further 18 seconds behind in fourth. Truly is fifth, catching Heidfeld now very quickly, so we may have a change of position here, and that would be another headache for Kimi Raikkonen if Jarno Trulli is fueled up to the end of the Grand Prix too, should he have to stop. And we saw a 6.7 second pit stop refueling time for Raikkonen, but I don't think that one was accurate, unfortunately, so we've no idea how much fuel he put in. Raikkonen just another 1.1 seconds faster than Frentzen this time around. But the main fight then is for fourth place between Heidfeld and Trulli right now.
Well, it's kind of out of Michael's hands, really. What about the World Championship this afternoon? There's not much more he can do than win the race and get the maximum 10 points. But if Kimi Raikkonen is going to be stubborn, stay in there and get the 8 points for second place, so be it. And we will go on to Suzuka in 2 weeks' time for the championship fight. Back Marco Minardi, they're getting out of the way of Jarno Trulli.
Who's ahead? Nick Heidfeld. Somewhere in there, Jarno Trulli passed the Sauber, so we didn't see it unfortunately on the screen. Hopefully there'll be a replay somewhere, but Trulli is up to P4, 19 seconds adrift of Frentzen. Frentzen's not under pressure. Heidfeld down then in P5. Also at the moment, Ferrari would leap ahead too in the Constructors' Championship. We've just got Montoya in a lowly 2-point scoring position at the moment, so it's really looking dream ticket for Ferrari. You'd have to say at the beginning of this race, it was Ferrari who looked like they had the biggest problem of the afternoon, the biggest job, especially when Barrichello got bundled out of the race, but the weather just brought them straight back into play.
Well, everybody's been asking how much experience would count in this final championship showdown. Montoya didn't have any experience of it in Formula One. Obviously, Kimi Raikkonen, it's the first time he's been here. Michael Schumacher, though, has been here many, many times before. Nothing much to choose between Ferrari, Williams and McLaren in terms of winning titles, but do you think experience was a big factor here today? Or obviously luck was a little bit as well with the weather.
Yeah, it was all down to the weather, James, frankly. I mean, Michael, remember when it first started to rain, Michael was nowhere. He was falling back quite quickly, back into 6th place. But as soon as it rained heavily enough for the Michelin runners to need a wet tyre, then it has been plain sailing for him. It's just really quickly crumbles.
And what do you make of the way that the three championship contenders have dealt with today? Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen and Juan Montoya.
Well, Montoya looked, and here's the replay then of Trulli taking that 4th place down in the braking zone of turn 8, and a nice neat manoeuvre there. So Trulli a solid drive in a car that he damaged and really hampered his progress yesterday in qualifying. I think Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen have been exemplary, I have to say, in very, very difficult conditions. It would be so easy to fall off that racetrack today. Every corner would have been a new adventure there at certain parts of the Grand Prix. I think Montoya's sort of looked a little bit clumsy, and I'm sad to say, because I really wanted him to stay in the championship and give us something right down to the wire, and maybe Formula One could nicely use a fresh champion at this time. And I'd love to see Michael Schumacher's recharge next year, coming back to snatch it back. But Montoya really has been off the racetrack. He's been in trouble with Barrichello, and it looked a touch unnecessary, that one, and generally didn't have the tyre to cope with the conditions either.
You're looking at Justin Wilson, who is on target to score his first World Championship point for Jaguar. And driving very well this afternoon is Justin Wilson, keeping it on the island, steady. He's behind Juan Montoya on the road. We always welcome your email questions here at F1 ITV. We have one from Damien Fawcett from Rochester in Kent, who wants to know what will happen if two drivers end the season with identical championship points. Could happen if we go on to Suzuka in a couple of weeks' time. And the answer, Damien, is that Michael Schumacher would be the champion because he's got more victories, as another big retirement then for BAR. And Jacques Villeneuve, that looked like a pretty terminal engine failure. He's out of the car pretty sharpish.
Down to electronic problems, I'd imagine. The piston went through the wiring loom. So Villeneuve falling out of 9th place then, really wasn't in contention, just coming under pressure from D'Amata in the sole remaining Toyota. Panis put the other one into the hedge. And what is this all about? This is Montoya, who is now just 2.7 seconds behind Fisichella to move him up into 6th place.
Yeah.
Tantalisingly close to the 5th place he needs to keep his championship chances alive.
Well, certainly being in 6th would be one thing, but the bad news for him is that Fisichella is 70 seconds behind the 5th place man Heidfeld. So Montoya, if he can pass the Jordan, is then going to need one of the guys in front to drop out of the Grand Prix. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility. We've seen plenty of retirements here this afternoon, but if that does not happen, then Montoya is out of championship contention into Suzuka. It will strictly be between Raikkonen and Michael Schumacher in Japan in a fortnight.
Montoya's about to frighten Fisichella off the road down here, blow him out of the way. If he gets anywhere near him down the back straight. And Heidfeld's in the action there, but he's not in this for position. He's a lap ahead of them. Nick Heidfeld currently P5, and Montoya slow onto the pit straight as it happens. You watch him just eat them up now, as that low downforce setting gives him such speed. Look at that, what a slingshot. The engine starts revving. It's a great feeling. It's like somebody's sucking you along, and he does indeed pass, almost past the pair of them. But I remind you, Heidfeld is a lap ahead of him. Montoya, what's he got to do now? The next man down the road is Nick Heidfeld. He's a lap behind the man he's got to pass.
Talk about an irony. The man he'd love to just have an engine failure or some sort of technical problem, just get out of his way and give him half a chance going into Japan. But there we are. He's staring at his rear wing, knowing that he's got to make up somehow a whole lap, a whole 1 minute and 13 seconds in order to take it on to Suzuka.
If he does a Barrichello on him, maybe just tip him into the gravel or something. Not got a lot to lose now, really, has he? Not I'm suggesting he should do it, but P6 means nothing today for Montoya.
The points would be welcome in any other circumstance, but not today, after the Tom and Jerry afternoon that he's had of incidents and misfortunes and prangs. It's just simply not going to be enough. 5 laps to go here at Indianapolis. They come whipping out of this magnificent turn 13, 190 miles an hour as they go down the long straight, touching 220 miles an hour before the braking zone, as we look at a replay of Jacques Villeneuve. And that's what it looks like when a 900 horsepower engine decides it's had enough.
Yeah, serious terminal problems inside. That's where the oil starts getting into the combustion chamber, and Jack, flames licking around there at the back loop, the oil burning away. Jack deciding he's had enough of that, and off he goes. Michael Schumacher then cruising around now in 1 minute 13. He could go a second and a half pull up faster than that if he needed to. Raikkonen crucially in 2nd place, 21 seconds of drift, and no sign of any activity whatsoever in the McLaren pit.
No, that means that it doesn't look as though the splash and dash is going to be necessary. Ted can tell us more, perhaps.
James, that is certainly the feeling I get down here. I've been to every other top team, I can tell you, asking them, what do you think? What do your guys on the pit wall think? They say, we don't know. It's going to be very, very tight if he does have to come in. We think that he's managed to lean out the engine and make it these laps last. It would have been a long time, but I can tell you, the helmets are starting to come off. The pit boys are taking their helmets off. I don't think Raikkonen's going to come in again. I think that's it. P2, here we come.
Well spotted, Ted, and thanks for that. Schumacher then on lap 70, just 3 laps to go, but he won't be punching the air for World Championship number 6, will he? Because Kimi Raikkonen, 20 seconds adrift, but crucially in P2 and 8 World Championship points. But you have to say, Michael heads to Suzuka with not a big task on his hands.
No, it's a simple task for Suzuka. If it finishes like this, Michael Schumacher simply needs 1 point. That's all he needs. And Raikkonen would have to win the race anyway in order for anything other than Schumacher to win the championship. So it shouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility, but you never know. Michael might not finish the race and Raikkonen might well win it. It's been that sort of season in Formula 1 this year. Totally unpredictable. Who would have known that today's race would shape up the way it did? He has driven absolutely magnificently. Rather off colour yesterday in qualifying. Said it's not a disaster being in 7th place. It's not ideal either, but he had a little glint in his eye. Felt he had a good package for the race, but certainly the weather conditions and the Bridgestone wet tyres have helped him considerably. But hats off to Kimi Raikkonen. This has been a really dogged drive in completely adverse conditions for the young Finn. He's handled it brilliantly.
Yes, he kept it on the island. Sauber have done a solid job. They saved the pit stop. They pitted it just, well, certainly Frentzen did. He's only stopped twice this afternoon. That's the least number of anybody. Damat has been in 6 times, including his drive-throughs and changing to wets, back to slicks, back to wets again. Chiesa has been in 5 times. Furman was in 6 times too. Lots of activity in the pit lane. Frentzen only coming in twice. Sauber have handled the conditions very well too. 3rd and 5th for them at the moment, and up to that point they'd only scored 9 World Championship points, so they'll leapfrog Jordan and well, let me see, and Toyota too, be right in there, joining the BAR and Jaguar fight, which is looking good too, because Wilson's in with a chance of a World Championship point to bring Jaguar absolutely level with BAR.
Well, it's looking as though this man's championship dream is going to be over here this afternoon. Juan Montoya is still in 6th place. Just a couple of laps to go here at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And he needed 5th or better to take it on. So it will be down to Michael Schumacher and Kimi Raikkonen in Japan in 2 weeks' time. Tony George, the president and owner of Indianapolis Motor Speedway, is the man who waves the checkered flag here to finish the race. You recall his confusion last year when Michael Schumacher slowed to allow Rubens Barrichello to pass. That's not going to happen here this afternoon. Michael Schumacher is going to keep his foot planted to the floor as he begins his final lap, and he is going to win the American Grand Prix, and well, he will deserve it. And tantalising though, the championship will continue on.
Sauber are going to jump from 9th in the championship out of 10 right up to 5th if they maintain this result, right into the thick of the action. That big squabble there with BAR, Jaguar and Toyota. It's going to be very close. That's going to be interesting to watch. But the Constructors' Championship will be far from settled this afternoon. Something to watch out for very much in Suzuka, and the teams. It's super critical to these teams. They all really want to win that one too, as well as the drivers. At the moment, Michael Schumacher's sailing very, very tantalisingly close to that, but not quite close enough. Thank goodness for that.
Well, it's been the most exciting World Championship for many, many years, but Michael Schumacher has given himself one gigantic step closer to a record 6th world title. He just needs 1 point in Suzuka then, as he comes across the start-finish line to win the American Grand Prix. It's his 2nd victory here at Indianapolis, his 6th of the season, and a wonderful 70th career win for Michael Schumacher. And look how much it means to him. He is absolutely ecstatic. But where is Raikkonen? Where is Raikkonen? He was 19 seconds behind, and he goes across the start-finish line now. So we will be going on to decide this World Championship in Japan.
So, no sign of the Colombian flags. It's all gone terribly quiet underneath us here, James, in the grandstand. Suddenly, a sea of red flags waving. It's been a dismal day for Juan Pablo Montoya, but Michael Schumacher wins comfortably then from Raikkonen, and Frentzen takes the final podium slot.
And I'm still in shock, Neil Crompton. I don't. I'm still trying to work out what happened here in this race when it was all set up for a very, very close finish to the championship at Suzuka. It is now virtually a foregone conclusion. And well, to sum up the day, Heinz-Harald Frentzen got on the podium. That pretty much says it all.
Yeah. Well, what happened was Bridgestone had the right tyre in those awkward semi-wet conditions, and Michael's choice, or his team's choice in particular, to back-to-back those stops and come back in from the slicks on lap 19, pick up the intermediates on lap 20, was a very clever strategic move. This man made no mistakes. His nearest rival did make mistakes in Montoya, and that's pretty much the synopsis of the day. And you could just feel the pressure in the middle of this motor race was quite extraordinary, and really Montoya and Williams just didn't handle it appropriately, with a problem with their fuel rig on the stop. I mean, it was just a very difficult day for those guys as we confirm these unofficial results. Schumacher, Raikkonen, Frentzen on the podium, and it's the first time that Frentzen's been on the podium since here at this track in 2001.
Good save from Justin Wilson too.
2000, in fact, I should say.
As Martin pointed out, a tremendous battle for 5th place in the Constructors' title, and that is not insignificant given that the top 4 teams are well clear. Mad scramble behind them. Now, Jacques Villeneuve, this only puts another nail into his coffin, so to speak. Very difficult season for him. What lies in store, but really a lot of it hasn't been his fault, has it?
No, the car's been fearfully unreliable throughout the year, and you probably have to say, from a racing driver's point of view, if it wasn't going to get much better than that, I don't know whether you'd want to be there anyway. Now, the point situation's pretty interesting. Michael adds 10, obviously, and moves on to 92 by virtue of his second placing, and here it is. Raikkonen up to 83. Montoya drops back a spot now with 82. Ralph and Rubens don't score, neither does Alonso, neither does Coulthard, but Trulli picks up points for 29. Webber not scoring today. Frentzen jumps up into the top 10 now by virtue of his 3rd place. Then Fisichella, Button, so disappointing for him today, so both BAR Hondas up in smoke. And look at this man here, 70 Grand Prix victories, still the dominant force in the 2003 championship. And
in case anyone was wondering, you'll notice there that Montoya is 10 points behind Schumacher. That's 1 win. Of course, if it goes to a countback, Schuey has him well beaten with more wins for the season. That's why Montoya cannot win the championship now. And this is the Constructors' battle we were talking about before, with this tremendous battle from 5th onwards.
And the significant thing there is that Sauber has jumped up with a big pile of points today, up to 19 points. They've picked up 10 points in one race. They went into the event with just 9 points, and they were down in 9th, and now they're 5th after all the discussion about would it be BAR, Jaguar or Toyota. Well, all 3 of those teams managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, but not this man, celebrating this fantastic achievement.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't count this as one of his best wins in recent times. It was very much a team effort, as well as you say, Neil, composed driving. But I think the reaction from Michael there says a lot. As he heads towards the podium, we don't want to put our own thoughts into his head, but I reckon it's a good guess.
Incidentally, Bill, this year we've had 13 leaders throughout the Grand Prix season, which I think would be getting towards certainly one of the more recent records.
There are a few today.
Yeah, and a record number of pit stops in today's Grand Prix. Replay of Michael crossing the finish line across the hallowed yard of bricks. And we mentioned those fascinating stats at the top of the show about the strength of Ferrari so far this year, and they've continued to build on that. Bridgestone now with 8 wins. Ferrari, 7 wins this season. We've talked about Michael's 70th and his 6th so far this year, and there's the car that's delivered victory for him today, and that'll be elevated shortly in this elaborate podium system they have at Indianapolis, which we saw last year when we were there for the 500 for RPM and our coverage of the Indy 500.
Well, he's led 2/3 of the total laps he's driven at this circuit, Michael Schumacher. Well, that was true going into this race, and it'll be still around that figure now. Never been off the podium here.
Michael also picked up a fastest lap today, so he's got 5 fastest laps recorded to his name in this 2003 championship.
Well, we wanted it to be close, but to be fair, he has clearly won more races than anyone else, so he would be the deserved world champion at the end of the next round. This is a big one. Michael Schumacher wins, almost certainly the world champion now, you would think. He senses that here in the United States, with Raikkonen having to win and Michael having to score 0 points in the final round at Suzuka. That is the only way he could be stopped. And what must Juan Montoya be thinking right now in the Williams garage? We will certainly find out what these guys are thinking. We'll take a break shortly. When we come back, we will hear from the men on the podium. Of course, in the interim, we'll watch them spray the champagne.
This guy would be pretty relieved, Bill. It's been a long time between drinks, and as I said before, it was actually at this track in Jordan a couple of years ago. So,
and his position reportedly under threat.
Yes,
this year. Well, Sauber did mention after qualifying that they thought they had a very, very good solid run of development through the course of the weekend, that they were improving all the time, right up until the warm-up, but things didn't go well for them in the final one-lap qualifying session. Well, certainly Peter Sauber's statements were borne out in the race performance. We'll take a break. On the other side of that, hopefully we'll hear from the drivers. praised for thinking that these guys had won the championship. Ferrari and, in fact, their Bridgestone consultants have been embracing and dancing and carrying on in the pits, and they are very, very close.
Well, they've taken the pressure off themselves, Bill.
From the 4th United States Grand Prix at Indianapolis, congratulations to our 3 podium finishers, to Sauber Petronas' Heinz-Harald Frentzen, second place for West McLaren Mercedes, Kimi Räikkönen, and our winner for Scuderia Ferrari Marlboro, Michael Schumacher. Michael, a great, great win for you. Qualified 7th, that problem on Saturday morning. Didn't look brilliant in the early laps in the wet, but a great win for you.
Yeah, a great and an important one, and obviously an important outcome for the rest of the competitor, what concerns my position for the championship. And now I'm so pleased. I mean, it's such an emotional day today, so fantastic. After, as you said, not a great qualifying performance, having a good start, being back in the race, falling back due to the rain with slick tyres, then coming back with rain tyres, then not knowing what's the weather going to do, being back in slicks, starting to rain again towards the end. There was everything in it today, and to win this one in the crucial stage of the championship meant a lot, and I'm just so thankful to all the guys of Ferrari, to all our tifosi, because they just carried us to this success, and I'm just so thankful.
I've got to ask you, we thought that you'd just pulled off the masterstroke of the day coming in on lap 20 as the rain was falling, and yet you went out on dry tyres.
Yeah, it was a crucial moment because we had this sort of rain before, which just came and then went straight away, and it was for sure too dry to go to wet tyres. And this rain just looked, it would be another one of those. And it was just a gamble. And coming into the pit lane, I was thinking and actually saying on the radio, I wonder if we shouldn't change our decision. But it was too late anyway. It would have caused a fuss and a mess. And, well, afterwards you always know more. We went out on dries. The guys just still did a great job. And then we came back in straight away and just had a fantastic car for this condition. Unbelievable tyres for this condition, which just gave us the victory today.
What was your feeling at that point when you went back out on the wets? Were you thinking, I can still win this?
Yeah, I mean, it was clear that everybody sort of the front runners at least, Heinz-Harald did the right move. He was probably one of the only ones did the right decision. But of the front runners for the championship concerned, all had done the pit stops earlier than me, meant that they were on dry tyres and they had the same sort of problem than I had. Meaning that I was not too far away and would be able to close this gap, because we knew pretty much before that our rain tyres would be better than our competitors.
What do you think now, looking back at that 7th qualifying position? What happened yesterday?
I think we were just a bit unlucky, honestly. Afterwards we sort of checked the data, and we got in trouble in turn 1 and 2, and checking it, there was just a big blow wind coming at the time I was going through that corner, and that cost me a couple of tenths, and I knew that, so I was trying to make up in the rest of the circuit and just pushing a little bit too much, and it wouldn't work out. And I think it's one of those unlucky days where it doesn't work together, but obviously we have worked very well on our starting system, and I was able to catch a lot of position straight at the start, which brought me back into the fight.
Thank you, Michael. Kimi, it was all looking so good. Great start, took the lead at the start, and then the rain.
Yeah, I think so. We lost the race because we were very unlucky with the weather today, but what can you do? We fight. I was fighting as much as I could, and we only got second place, and of course it's not the best because Michael won and we came second for a championship, but
you are still in the championship.
Yeah, but it's always making our life more difficult. But at least we're in the championship, and you never know, maybe we have another very difficult race in the last one, and it all can happen there.
It's amazing the differences between the Bridgestones and the Michelins in those conditions.
Yeah, I think so. It was just when it's a little bit wet and you can still run with the slicks, which seems to be always more stronger. But then if it gets really heavy rain, I think so we're still in a good shape. But if it's between those two, then it's just not working as our tires are not working as well as the Bridgestone. But it is much better than last year or beginning of year, and hopefully we will get there.
Thank you, Kimi. Heinz Harald, last time you were on the podium was here at Indianapolis in 2000.
Yeah, good memories. Yeah, I'm very happy, and especially in our situation, we had a very difficult season, and podium places would not be really our regular target this year. But the perfect condition for us today helped me, and the team did a good job helping me.
Perfect.
Fascinating.